Greetings, I'm Dr. Al Freeman, Director of LCMS School Ministry, and I am here with Dave Sommermeyer, who is former Executive Director of the Lutheran Education Association of Houston, former consultant for many schools and financial guru for us, and back a few years ago as well for school ministry, one of the leads for our Finace Academy. That went around all over the country, right, Dave?
Yeah.
And did presentations. So Dave, thankfully, has agreed to join us this morning and talk about finance. It will cover some of the things in Standard 8 of our new Protocol G for National Lutheran School Accreditation. Dave was one of the people behind that and was the key driver, illustrator of Standard 8 as well in finance, so we obviously rely a lot on Dave and his wisdom, not only with finance, but so much more. Long-time individual running Lutheran schools and helping Lutheran schools to succeed in any way possible. So we're very thankful to have Dave with us today. We were scheduled to go on Friday, our normal Finance Friday time. However, I happened to be in Florida, and there was a Hurricane Helene that changed some flight plans and some other things. So we had to change to today, Monday. And thankfully, it worked for Dave's schedule. I guess maybe it's Money Monday instead of Finance Friday and the carryover. Let me open us in prayer, and then I will turn it over to Dave. And please join me especially in keeping all things impacted by Hurricane Helene in your prayers. Florida, Georgia area. I was scheduled to go to North Carolina this week for an event, and they have been hit substantially by this hurricane. South Carolina as well. So many different areas as it spread throughout. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this wonderful and glorious day, knowing that you always hold us in your hand and in your care. And although things can be in turmoil and despair here, that you are always there as our guide and our lead. We ask that you especially be with all of those impacted by the hurricane throughout our country, as it has impacted so many. Be with our schools, be with our families, the students, and all those communities that are dealing with the floods, the devastation, the winds, whatever the case may be. Allow them to be in prayer and know that you are there, that you never forsake us, but are always present, and that you care for us in all situations. Be with us all as we continue to lift those up in prayer and guide them in any way that we possibly can. We give you thanks for the birth of a baby for Will and his wife Katie. We take joy in that. Continue to be with Will, Katie, and their family, and keep them as they celebrate the birth of a child. We ask you to be with Dave this morning. We give you thanks for his willingness to constantly serve you in so many different ways, and to be with us today to talk about finance, but more importantly, to talk about ministry and how we serve and how the schools, our Lutheran schools out there, spread your precious gospel message in so many ways and at all times to students, families, and the community at large. In your son's name we pray. Amen. I'm going to get Dave rolling here, and then one of my favorites that Dave always talks about is no margin, no mission. Dave, it's all yours.
Yeah, it's actually no margin, no ministry.
Oh, no, yes.
Yeah. Could be a mission,
no ministry,
could
yes.
be mission as well. And there's really a financial margin. And if you don't run at a profit or a break-even kind of thing, ultimately the ministry is not going to exist. It's a financial thing. Everything starts with a vision, okay? I've kind of defined vision as a preferred future condition. From a financial perspective, it's the margin of income exceeding expenses. I set a goal of this, could be in the range of 5%, that margin is there in case something falls through the cracks and so forth. But a vision is a clear roadmap of how an organization plans to accomplish its mission. I use a 3 to 5 plan approach for visioning with 3 to 5 goals, 3 to 5 objectives for each goal, 3 to 5 strategies to accomplish each objective, 3 to 5 action steps for each strategy, and then each step requires who was responsible, the time frame, cost, and accountability. If somebody wants more information on that, you contact me and I'll get it to you.
And to contact Dave, if you want to just send me an email, Dave still responds to my emails.
Yes.
So I'll pass it along and connect you as well. And I should have said in the beginning, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat as well.
Okay, National Lutheran Schools Accreditation, Section 8 of the process, in that accreditation process, deals with finances. Financial benchmarks address goals, they address progress points, accomplishments. That's in Section 8, but the no margin, no ministry really addresses financial practices, opportunities for addressing accreditation standard 8. Sound finances begin with leadership and responsibility. Governing board, okay, or other defined group is critical in having people capable of helping and taking responsibilities. I've always had a lawyer, somebody who was a banker or an accountant, a person who was an executive, occasionally a parent. I don't advise that.
So Dave, why not a parent? And I'm with you on that one, by the way, and I think that's a good one to hit on.
I think parents come with a view of how things are as far as they're as a parent kind of thing. They're not inclined to increase tuition if it needs to be increased because it comes out of their pocket kind of thing. So I think when you talk about some of the sensitive issues, having a parent there is not necessarily the way to go, because the parent's got to go back and talk to everybody else that's the parent with them.
Yeah, I always say you put them and the school kind of in a bad position, so you just want to avoid that.
I would have education, somebody that's an educator, somebody that's a financial advisor, someone who understands the numbers. That's a key issue as far as getting a board. So it's just not each member brings something else to the table. Administration, school leadership, the principal or assistant is responsible. Whoever is responsible for the school's budget should be in their accountability. Governing and school leadership must be held accountable. Operate in the black. Income should exceed expenses. Goals at least 5%. So to cover a margin there. Clarity and understanding and distinguishing the school's finances separated from the owning governing organizations. In other words, you got to understand the school's finances over and against the church's finances that govern it. So you know what it really costs you, what it's costing the church to operate that school. The church should, okay, and can provide financial support. What will happen if the financial need is greater than the governing organization can provide? In other words, the congregation can't continue to cover that. I think one of the things that happens a lot of times in trying to get through the end of the year, schools and organizations tend to use prepaid tuition fees and others, things paid in advance for the next years. Don't use them because that money's dedicated for the next year, and I've found that happening a lot.
So Dave, what do you do if you find yourself in a financial position, because basically you're borrowing against next year from yourself,
Right.
and you're just kind of kicking the can down the road? So what's your recommendation if you're in that financial state as a school where you're looking to, what can I do? Oh, I have to take money from the prepaid tuition so that I can pay the bill today. What do you do?
Well, I actually put that expense in the next year and start to pay it off. You can look at it, maybe you reduce that over a period of 3-4 years kind of thing by planning ahead to pay that off. It's almost like it's got a mortgage, you got to pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
And you would include that expense of paying that back in the next 2-3 years financial plans.
Right. And you probably too want to re-examine your budget, I would think, right? Because
You're gonna have to revamp the budget.
Yeah.
The budget's gonna, you may come back and your enrollment's way up the next year and it's easier to pay it off. You may come back and your enrollment's down the next year and it's gonna be harder to pay that off. And we'll talk about that a little bit here as we go forward. Vouchers, I'm not gonna talk about them a lot because there's a Friday thing coming up on vouchers, but part of the key thing in vouchers is being able to determine the cost of education. What is it costing you to educate a child? Now that includes, it's hard to do. I know I spent many hours doing that and getting stuff for the state of Indiana kind of thing and dealing with that. How do you carve out school department expenses from the governing organization? In other words, what's the school's portion of the mortgage, the utilities, the maintenance, shared staff, cleaning grounds, all those? The school has the church is paying all that, the school doesn't do that. You're still gonna have to show that to determine a cost of education with vouchers, but I'll leave that to vouchers. Enrollment. Project enrollment for a minimum of 3 years, update annually, member, community, international, exchange, others. Compare prior year's projections with actual enrollment. Is enrollment growing, stable, and declining? Those particular things will determine what you've got to do. In the marketing area, we recommend that schools have some kind of admissions counselor. I asked the question, does the word Lutheran in the school's name limit enrollment versus Christian? I'm not saying one way or the other, but how do you open up to the community? Because that's a critical issue. Immediate, and when you get a contact, immediate follow-up, personnel, shadow days, etc. Understand and calculate the value of your empty seats. Something is better from that empty seat than nothing from that empty seat. 5 empty seats in 8 grades equals 40 empty seats. Can they be filled? If discounted. Address that aggressively, kind of thing. And if you get $2,000 instead of a $4,000 tuition, that's $2,000 more than you would have had, okay? But you look at 40 empty seats, that gets that's something you go back and in some places there's more than 40 empty seats. That's saying that you got your normal seat is 25 and you only got 20. You fill it with 25 and you only got 15 in there. That just compounds that whole issue. You got to go back and say, how do we fill?
And I will say on that, Dave, that's one of the things about Finance Academy. Finance Academy had some of those spreadsheets. We also have spreadsheets available for individuals here that we always make available via a link to Google Docs. So we'll share some of those as well. But I think with all of that, the component, you talk about the knowing the cost to educate a child is incredibly important. Otherwise, you're flying blind, right? And then your empty seat costs, you should know what it costs you to run that classroom, and what the value of each seat is. So there's a lot of things here in Finance Friday. And in Dave's presentation here, But again, we address with some spreadsheets that you can put your numbers in and calculate these, but you should know them.
Costs are going up and up and up and up and up, okay? Salaries and benefits, what are your goals? My recommendation is you meet or exceed district or synodical guide recommendations. I always looked at 80% of public school packages, salary scales with incentives for advanced degrees and experience that you pay for, graduate school and continuing again for your teachers. We assisted, we paid 100% of the costs for advanced degrees. I don't necessarily have to do that, but that's recommended, encouraged to get to that point. You want to take that excuse away from faculty members that they can't afford to get the advanced degrees. Do not fund operations on the back of underpaid or poorly paid workers. That's just a comment there. Note the new Concordia plan rate increases are coming, so you got to prepare for those as well.
But I will mention that salaries and benefits, districts provide salary scales, so you can go to the district websites and find that information. And Concordia Plans also has the salary calculator, so you can go and you can plug in the information in their salary calculator. And again, if you don't have that web address, we'll get that in the information we send out as well. But that salary calculator, one of the interesting things about it, you plug that all in, it gives you pages of benefit information as well and what's comparable in your area. So it's more than simply just, hey, here's a salary guideline for you. Here's benefits and some other things that are going on in your area.
Tuition, it's increasing exponentially, okay? It has to. I'm seeing numbers minimally $5,000, well, it should be the other way around, $2,000 to $5,000 in Lutheran schools. Even higher in private schools. Monitor what's going on in comparison. There's all kinds of tuition plans, member, non-member, sister congregations, organization. And then what kind of financial assistance packages do you have? States with vouchers and or tax donation programs bring those numbers down dramatically. There is no reason in the state, and I can only talk about Indiana because that's where I was working. There's no reason that a person cannot afford to send their kids to a Lutheran school. But then you've got to market that and make that happen. And so that's dramatically costing.
I think it's important though too, and it kind of goes back to what you've been building on. Don't give lack of better phrasing, a false number for tuition, right? Because the voucher programs or tax programs see your tuition at $3,500, but in reality, it's $8,000 to educate a student. Sometimes as Lutheran schools, we like to put a number down there because you're getting money from the congregation or wherever else. Put the actual number down or you may miss out on some voucher dollars, right?
We talked about that briefly when filling out with vouchers,
Yeah.
and you'll see that more when you look at vouchers closely, how to do that. We're going to talk about tuition going up dramatically. 2 years ago, okay, my niece was a full-day preschool in New York City. $46,000.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So the costs are out there.
At preschool, $46,000 a year
It
preschool.
was a full day.
Yeah.
It was just preschool, okay? Some things I found useful or helpful. Budget for the unexpected, 3 to 5%. Coming back, I've talked about that before. Filling empty seats with extra assistance when needed. Okay, somebody says, I really like this, your tuition's $5,000 and I really can only afford 3. If the seat's empty and you get $3,000 for it, keep it confidentially and do it. I recommend an annual outside audit. Probability, once I was doing that, our outside audit balanced to the penny with what our financial statements were, if you're doing your finances right. Outsource stuff, okay? Facts, Smart, others, okay? Reduce in-house personnel expenses by more than the cost to do that. if I can get by with a part-time person that I don't have to pay benefits for, okay, instead of a full-time person, more than's covered than that, okay? I outsourced calculating financial assistance need. They had to fill out the application. They fill out all the information. They can come back and they can tell you this is what the person needs. Okay, now we didn't give 100% of that. We, depending on what we had available. Tuition billing and collection was all outsourced. Payroll, all taxes, benefits, etc., along with paychecks are handled by the vendor. Turn the information in on, say, Thursday night, and by Friday morning, we had our paychecks, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I didn't have to pay somebody in-house to do that. And so it was cheaper. It was a way to reduce my cost for what it cost to educate a job because I had less staff. Some more strategies, okay? Fees. You have an application fee, a registration fee. Applications for new-time students, registration every year. I've seen those as high as $300, $400, $500. Materials fees. Some people charge the materials. We did a lease purchase laptop computer program on a 4-year cycle. The student ends up owning it. The student can either purchase or lease a computer. Books on a 5-year cycle. No books over 5 years old. I was in a school with a number of other people that we found textbooks that were 20 years old, okay? What we did to address some of that is students purchase a book, only one book issued a year. So in other words, we got new books, new math, science, social studies, English. We did those on a rotating cycle, so no book was ever more than 5 years old. Students bought their books. So only had one was new, so they were buying the others at a reduced, price. We bought them back, graded condition, gave credit toward the next year's. So in other words, the freshman books or the sophomore books, we bought them back, and the freshmen then bought those. Only one had to be new, and the others were at reduced prices, depending on how the child had used or abused. It's amazing, and it's amazing how many I found in lockers. After kids cleaned out stuff, kind of thing, that just went back into the inventory. The students leaving, okay, school, getting checks for the value of the books returned. Many parents just didn't cash those checks or just sent them back, kind of thing, at the end because they were thankful. So it was a way of generating more money. Now, there's not one just place, okay, that the income, you get a little bit here, you get a little bit there, you get a little bit there, and that's where you start to, you got to project what that's going to be, you got to understand that when you're putting your budget together. Other things that we did, there were no outside banking accounts. In other words, our boosters and PTO did not have access outside of, they could write a check to someplace else, okay? We all handled all those with an in-house agency type account. Any income was deposited to a specific agency, and then the organization wanted to spend the money, they would request funds from there. There was my administrative checkpoint. I could check what was going on, and if something was not appropriate or approved kind of thing, I could put a halt to it or address those. So it's a management kind of thing. Looking for events that can generate additional income. I think that's a key issue. Athletic events, concert events, drama, season events, host events that include other schools. All of those have kind of an entrance fee. We got to account for those. Now, if a lot of times, the boosters, and the boosters are getting the money from the athletic income, then it's not necessarily going through the school's books, and it's not. We didn't have access. Other events, dinner auctions, big time, okay, golf outings with whole sponsors, trivia night, dinners, galas, dances, bingo, walkathons, grandparents' day, breakfast with a principal, free estate planning. Those were all financial events that we did to help generate some income. And even in the finance, the free estate planning, they would at least address leaving something for this church or the school. Okay?
So who did you use for the free estate planning, Dave? Lutheran Foundation, because they're more than willing to come out and help you with that?
I had local guys who, well, it could have been a Thrivent or AAL, somebody, okay, that would do that for us free of charge. Okay, and it was business for them, and we were providing clients, but they were also going back and protecting our interest, or at least expressing our interest. Maybe Grandparents' Day, we had the library, okay, came in, the public library, the bookstore, okay, came in on that day, and the grandparents would buy the kids' books. We'd get a profit on that. And they could also go back, and the teachers would leave a list. These are the items books that we would like, and parents and others would pick up the cost of those and fill our library.
Never miss an opportunity, right?
That's right.
I would always
Look at
say
everything is somehow, how can I generate income out of it?
I would always say everything we did always impacted fundraising or revenue generation and admissions.
Right.
So everything you do at all times, Grandparents' Day or a gala or golf outing, whatever, you always have to have that mindset of revenue generation, and it's going to impact admissions.
That's right. Okay. Share and recommend and communicate needs. Okay. This is fundraising. You're going to have a whole fundraising thing too. But employer matching gifts. Okay. Expose people to those particular things. Thrivent choice dollars. Where did they go? Required minimum deduction, distribution. Okay. From the IRA. I've got an IRA that's has a required minimum distribution, and take that distribution and give that, okay, and then I don't have to pay taxes on that. Okay, so I doubled this. And state income tax, distribution, state granting organizations, SGOs, Grandparents' Day, I talked about that, okay. I auction parking spaces. I had a pastor who bought his daughter, it was like almost $1,000 in a parking spot, okay? Because she had a hard time getting up in the morning and he didn't want her late to school. That's just an example. You can do 2 or 3 of those. Special needs awareness. All of our stage lights, microphones, okay? Parents were willing to buy a light or buy a microphone because their kids were involved in those particular activities. Okay, they had expenses. So we were able to get a lot of that stuff without having to budget for it financially from that particular standpoint. Where we budgeted and it would be reimbursed and offset it. You can do it way. Teachers' Amazon wish list, that's teachers can put those, people buy those from that standpoint. Spiritware, big money in spiritware. We used uniforms and so forth, okay? And if a parent would recommend somebody who would enroll in school, particular moms, I would buy them a warm-up suit, okay, from that particular standpoint. Now, I got double benefit from that, because where was mom wearing that? Out in the community, et cetera, that's where your kids go there. It's just think outside the box a little bit and saying, how can I do that marketing from that standpoint?
I was used to say with that too, Dave, is make a list so that you're always ready, because you never know when somebody you might be in pickup line, and you're out there and parents are there, and one parent might say, hey, I'd really like to donate to the school. What's something that you need? And if you're fumbling around trying to think of what you need, you might miss an opportunity.
Right, and the teachers should know that too. Your staff people, this is what we're looking for, okay? How do you reach out into the community? I had local pastors from all the churches around there 2 or 3 times a year, just have them in for breakfast and explain what's going on and so forth. What kind of neighborhood event can you run that will attract people from that standpoint? This is a newer one, is the weekend and holiday programs that you can market to the community, okay? So maybe over the Christmas holiday, you have an arts academy, which could include theater, dance, instrumental music, art, vocal, jazz, okay, where people would pay to have their kids come to that particular program, okay? And we were running those at a profit. Again, that was additional income because we were using the school's facilities, which wasn't costing us much because they were there, you know, from that standpoint. Maybe a little heat and so forth. Sports, okay, go back and look at coming in for a pitching camp or a football camp, a basketball shooting camp. Robotics is big stuff, big time kind of thing, and come in and have robotics competitions and teach kids how to do that. But we did it on a weekend or on a holiday when parents were looking for something for their kids to do.
And not just fundraising, but as you talked about before, also admissions.
That's
because
right.
These kids are getting exposed to your campus, and the parents are as well.
You know, it was interesting when I was running summer programs before. I had more interest from community staff, community teachers, to put in the extra time than I had from our Lutheran teachers. Okay, I mean, I hired bukus of people in the summer in New York. Very few of them were Lutheran teachers working from that particular standpoint. So people that teachers in the community are looking to work and are willing to do that. And they also then recommend, you know, kids to go to school.
Yeah. Well, and Dave, you ran one of the largest programs in the country at Long Island.
In the summer.
Yeah, that was massive. I mean, how many kids participated in that every summer?
100,000 maybe. No. 3 or 4,000.
3 or 4,000 bus routes all over the place.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And that's all changed. That price for what is 5 times higher today than it was back then. Okay. Facilities enhance quality academics. Okay. It's important in attracting an enrollment that your facilities are first class. And I know sometimes that's hard to do and renovate and so forth, but go back and renovate a classroom a year kind of thing and upgrade it with the latest technology, flexible learning space, foster collaborative creativity, furnishings compatible with activities, make sure your facilities are well maintained inside and out. It's amazing what a coat of paint will do.
Yeah, and I always say too, it's nice. One, I always recommend bring some real estate agents in and have lunch with them because, you know, they're selling homes to families and let them see your school. They might promote it, but also, you know, get somebody that has maybe is a real estate person, come in and have them walk around your school. They'll be able to tell you you're missing paint over here, or that doesn't match, or this or that. And you don't necessarily have to do everything at once, but you should definitely have a punch list and have a plan over time, right?
Yeah, because people are looking to volunteer. They'll do, you know, from that standpoint, if you can come up with the supplies and so forth. Finally, dare to imagine different. Be the first on the block. Have the courage to act on imagination. Look forward, not back. Have more dreams and memories. Amen.
Amen is right. If you have any questions, feel free here. You can raise your hand. We'll get out of the presentation and get to the Brady Bunch squares here to see if you have any questions. You can raise your hand or just hop on or type it in chat, and Dave is more than happy to answer any of those questions. And as we're seeing that, you know, I always say it can be a little daunting, you know, some of this, and you're trying to figure it out. Where do you start, Dave? So if I'm saying there's a principal and I'm just kind of overwhelmed by a little of this, where do I start?
I'd start with my empty seats, okay? There's a place that I would go back and say, I've got room, I got a place, got room to, I mean, they're already staffed, okay? So my staff costs don't go up. And if I got some of these other programs in place like books and other kind of your fees, that's a place that you can very rapidly fill that even at a reduced cost from that standpoint. That's a place I would look at to start.
Okay.
And I'd look to go back and say, how can I enhance facilities to attract, okay? It's like you're buying a new car, or you get more room, you get all.
That's right, yes. Yeah, and I always say, just develop a plan, right? Because otherwise you can be so scattered, it's like buckshot all over the place. So you really have to, in my estimation, develop a plan and then kind of prioritize that plan. What's a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4? What are the ones that I have to get to? What are the things that would be nice to get to, and how long will that take? And then you mentioned this before too. Bring people on board. You don't have to do all this yourself. So you might have a school board, but it may be good to have a finance committee that's separate from the school board itself, but helps provide information to the school board. And that might give you a chance to have a couple of community members on that as well. They don't necessarily want to be on the board because they don't want that kind of commitment, but they're more than happy to serve on a finance committee. Or you might have a fundraising committee or something like that again brings people in and develops that. So it's wise. You always have to be the smartest in the room, right? But if you bring smart people to the room, you can rely on them to make it happen.
When I was in Houston, the director of Space Center Houston, okay, had his kids in our school. He wasn't a Lutheran, but it's not that. This was not the program itself, but it was the visitors and all that others. That's the group that he ran, okay, and he was into marketing and so forth, and he gave me some marketing tips and from that particular standpoint, and was also a good contributor. I mean, we had one of our bidder auctions at the Space Center. Okay.
That's always nice, right?
Especially when it didn't cost us anything to use the facility. Okay. We actually had a connection. We had one of our dinner auctions at the baseball stadium. Okay.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's just that kind of exposure and so forth that. To have it at Space Center, I mean, it would win one of our biggest crowds because they got to go and see all the sites that
without everybody else being there and kind of behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. So I think you go back and how do you leverage that kind of stuff? And every place has got something that's unique kind of thing. Or at the particular point when I went to schools where, they were dying and there wasn't a whole lot you could do because it had gotten that far in the hole. And the church that was his primary supporter, because that's how it had always been, was declining in membership, et cetera, et cetera. And those schools actually folded. And probably, you hated to see that happen, but it really needed to happen.
Yeah, which really is why Standard 8's back in accreditation, right? Because that's something we're trying to avoid happening is just spiraling down and not paying attention to financial standards and how to make sure that you are financially sustainable. I always say when I go out and I talk with people or I present at conferences, 2 main reasons why Christian schools close. Number 1 is always finance. Which makes sense, right? No money, no margin.
No ministry.
And 2, leadership.
Right.
Well, really it's leadership because if you have the leadership, you have the finance, right?
Yeah, what happened to my leadership slide?
I don't know.
It fell out of there.
But we do have leadership. Dave has a slide that somehow fell out of there that deals with leadership, right?
Yeah, somehow it fell out of there.
Yeah.
Let's go back and talk about it. One of them is fact, which is FACT, which is run by the association, ALSS, Association of Lutheran Schools, where future leaders are identified and recommended to participate in a program, and if they're willing, it's like a 2-year internship kind of thing, if how to operate a school. And then Synod has a SLED program. I can't remember what the
School leadership development. So we're really creative in that, right? The SLED program.
But that again is a program that schools could ask some of their people on their staff maybe to go into that if they want to go into administration. I mean, there's a $500 cost, but after that, everything's covered. And I think most schools would cover the $500 cost if they were going to get
or sometimes a district too. Sometimes a district will cover that for you, depending on,
you know, from that standpoint. But I think that's a program that needs to be looked at and to get people who are, you know, on board with some of the leadership, and also with somebody who wants to be in leadership that doesn't cut the mustard in those particular programs. Okay, it singles that out from that standpoint. So I think that's a key issue.
Both are really strong programs. So you have leaders who are doing the presentations. I think ALSS is in fact cohort 6 right now, and we talk with one another on what's going on. And SLED, we're going to be approaching SLED 25, so the silver anniversary coming up here of SLED. And again, it's a year-long program. We do work online using Moodle Learning Management System. You're in a small cohort to talk with one another, and you are provided a mentor as well. So, you know, both programs really practical information on how to be an administrator.
Right.
Financial stuff, just communication items, several of these things. If you're interested, again, contact us. SLED program materials, the application is online, and we open that up January 15th. And then we close that March 15th for the cohort of SLED 25, and it looks like we have a couple of SLEDers on the Zoom right now. So talk to individuals who have been through it or are currently going through it. To me, that's always, you know, your finance and your leadership go hand in hand, and I think you put something up there too. You know, the fourth source funding, sometimes we refer to it as being on the backs of your teachers.
Yes.
Because a lot of times it might be your board and you're looking at, well, how are we going to make a go of it next year? Well, we just want to increase salaries. Right. And that's been a struggle lately because of inflation the last couple of years has been significant. Salaries don't exactly keep up with that. So it's about financial planning. We talk about it as individuals and families. We need to have financial planning. You talked about the 3-year projection of enrollment. You should always be keeping up to date on, and you should always look at, do we bring kids in at a certain grade or do we lose students at a certain grade? You know, I'll hear some of our schools talk about the fact they'll lose students going into 5th grade because we don't have a Lutheran high school close by, so they want to go over to the middle school. Well, what are you doing to combat that? You know, what's your strategy? If you're just looking at it and saying, oh, well, we lose students, that's not exactly a successful plan, right?
That's right.
So you should always be looking at enrollment and feeders and how do you grow that and how do you address that. And in today's world, I think even more so than before, because people have so much communication that's coming to them. You know, they'll see Facebook pages, they'll look at online the school like niche.com or other school websites that rate your school and things like that, which again, I always feel like it's important that you go out and you start things. I always say control your narrative. You should be finding parents to make sure that they put the good stuff about your school on there. Don't let other people do that. And then be and know your context. So some people will say Faith Lutheran Las Vegas, 6 to 12. Great school, great leadership. You know, you've got Steve Book there doing so many different things, and just wonderful programs. They have a flight simulator. They have a mock courtroom that the Nevada district there used to hold a couple cases and stuff. So a lot of things that they have that necessarily you may not be able to have, but that's okay. Know your context and fulfill what's important about your community and your school to serve that.
Right. I mean, it's, you know, what programs do you have that would attract people? I know Concordia High School in Fort Wayne has got a big JROTC program.
Tremendous JROTC program that they lean into, and it's known through the community and really through the nation. Right. You know, people recognize that as a program. So, and they do a great job of recognizing, promoting that, and the school environment recognizes that. Tremendous.
And their robotics team competed nationally and was world, okay?
Yeah.
And, #1 in the world in robotics competition for 2 years in a row. I know I think it's been more since that, but it's a tremendous program from that particular standpoint. My grandson was captain of that particular team, and you know, that's a feather in his cap.
Yeah, well,
and their cap too.
Exactly.
Because they built that particular program.
Exactly.
Not everybody can do it, but by the nature of having that JROTC program.
Well, each community is unique too. You know, you might have some rural communities that have a strong ag need.
Right.
So, for instance, Saxony Lutheran in Jackson, Missouri just started an ag program a few years ago, and it's just booming. And Concordia, Nebraska has developed an ag degree now. So, you know, there's different programs that are out there and people you connect with. And so kind of figure out your community and where their attention is. And if you tap into that, you can do a lot of successful things that help your school in terms of admissions, but also in revenue generation.
Yeah, you may have a strong music program from that standpoint that's going to attract kids from that, you know, and deal with that.
Lean into some of these things, but it's a discovery process too. And you know, as administrator, a lot of times it's good to go out and you know, attend some of the meetings, the community meetings, and know what's going on, and get to know especially if you're in a small town and you have a mayor of the small town or something like that. Bring them in, get to know them, have coffee with them, and do things like that. So you know. In terms of Standard 8, we will have some guidelines out that we'll be providing to district ed execs. We'll have online to help guide you in that process as well. The new scoring process of 1 to 4 and meeting benchmarks and some of these other things that Dave talked about, the percent of the congregation giving to the school. We have a little document now in Standard 8 that examines that, because again, it's something that you should know. And if that goes away, this is what we have to make up, right? And also to be thankful. Wow, the congregation's giving this to support the school. So
as much as we can put into Standard 8 in the way of finances, it's going to benefit our schools tremendously, and help them identify that. And in a lot of the information we talked about today, can very easily be incorporated into Standard 8, and as we look at upgrading or from that standpoint, and improving that process in the finances, because I think it's a key one that deals with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Dave's done a great job in organizing that Standard 8 so that we have, and it's really affirming some of those practices, but it's also helping to establish foundation and benchmarks so that you are a sustaining and growing Lutheran school, and identifying those areas that you might be struggling in so that they can be addressed, right?
Right.
And the last thing we want to see are Lutheran schools closed. And today we have so many opportunities that are out there. 38 states right now that have some type of funding, you know, some obviously more than others. We have several states now that have open choice programs and more that are examining that. So there are possibilities like there haven't been before. We see tremendous enrollment growth in the states that have a voucher program or a tax credit program of some sort. Enrollment in our Lutheran schools is increasing in those states.
Right, and then the key to that is getting that vouchers, doing the finances to say, it's really costing us about $8,000, okay, rather than $4,000 worth tuition from that standpoint, and that's key.
That is key.
To pulling that out, and it's not easy to do. And I know when I did it for Indiana, it was like a 10-piece spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's never easy to get money, right?
But
you need to put the time and effort in because there's so much that's there to help.
So that you can prove it, and you can document it. This is what our actual cost is to educate a child.
And once you do it, right, now you have it for the future. So
you just update the information every year from that standpoint. Nice. And it goes back and, one of the things that was a big one that is some places had, a significant amount of payables, okay, at the end of the year. How do you build that into paying that off as part of your it's in the budget expense, okay, but what's the school's portion of paying that off? And that's and it's and sometimes some of it's shifting things like some of the technology and computers and copiers and stuff like that, shifting that more to the school side than church side to increase the payout from that standpoint. And even in the voucher thing, as a pastor teaches an 8th grade religion class at maybe confirmation, a counterpart of his salary is education, okay? I mean, his salary, his benefits, okay, all those particular things ended up being a cost to the school from a voucher standpoint. So that's key, and that is going to continue to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. As our friend Nicolette Gibson always says, leave no money on the table. Take a look, make sure you're putting everything in. In our Finance Friday on title funds, Nicolette talked all about that as well. And Dave, I'm sure you would iterate the same. Don't leave money on the table because if it's there, you are
go get it.
Exactly. I mean, that's helping your school overall. That's helping toward salaries and benefits to our teachers. That's helping fund the programs for our students and the classrooms and everything. So, find that money and make sure that you're putting it to use too. Don't just let it sit there. Make those dollars work. All right, well, I don't see any questions, and I see we're kind of coming up on the time. As a reminder, this has been recorded, so it will be out there for on-demand viewing. We'll also make available to you a Google Doc link that has some documents in there that can help you with some of this finance information as well. Take a look at empty seats or school budgeting or some of these other things. Anything that we can do to help you and help our Lutheran schools as you continue to serve him.
You're going to give him my email address.
You can, yeah. You want to, or I'll email it out to him if you want.
Yeah, if you got any questions, like come on, David.
So we'll email you or send out Dave's email address as well. So if you have any questions about empty seats
I'll
or
put together preferred future condition.
Oh, okay, preferred future condition, yes. And again, Dave, one of the things that he would do in his consulting role is he would go into schools that were struggling, especially struggling financially, and would develop that preferred future condition and look at spreadsheets and revenue generation and spending as well. I think a lot of times our Lutheran schools, we always try to figure out how do we cut costs. And really we should be looking at how do we increase revenue.
Right. As well as reduce.
You always have to be cost conscious, right?
Careful look at your finances that you're not You may have to go back and combine second and third grade, okay? How do you do that effectively? Okay, but you do save the cost of salaries and benefits of the teacher um, from that particular standpoint, and not necessarily recommending that, but sometimes you got to go back and look at that on the enrollment thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes together, right? Your costs, your spending, and your revenue generation. You got to examine both to be successful and figure out how to balance that out. So, Dave has been doing that for a number of years, not just where he served, but also when he was called in to serve at places to stabilize and turn them around. So. Again, he's more than willing to make himself available. We'll send contact information out for Dave. So put him to work.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to try to help you.
That'd be great. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Dave for spending time with us. He's someone that we use quite a bit and have discussions with and examine what we can provide to our Lutheran schools, not only financially, but in so many other ways. So Dave, we always appreciate you and your friendship and your dedication to Lutheran schools. Blessings to all of you, and again, look for information coming out and for this on demand. Blessings on your week and on your day, and we continue to keep all those impacted by the hurricane in our prayers. Have a great day.